All right, it's time to move into our second panel. Panelists, you look ready. Thank you for your willingness to be a little tight up here. Watch that side, as we've already learned earlier today. So our focus now is on corporate water stewardship in practice, collaborative innovations across the spectrum. It provides us an opportunity to look at real-life actions in support of addressing water challenges. It also provides us an opportunity to begin thinking about the afternoon session as to how corporate water stewardship practice can inform and relate to the three water thematic areas for the post-2015 development agenda. It's also an opportunity to link back to the earlier session in terms of the relationship of these actions to the types of challenges that we heard discussed here in India. So, to keep us moving forward quickly, let me go ahead and introduce our first two speakers. We first, with the topic water stewardship and footprinting within the Tata Group, I'd like to note we have a substitution on the agenda. We have Arunovo Mukherjee. He's the Vice President, Tata Quality Management Services. And we have Ruth Mathews, Executive Director of the Water Footprint Network. If we could please welcome these two speakers.
Hello, and thank you very much for the invitation to speak here today. And I feel very privileged to be able to speak here today because we are being hosted by Tata Steel, and over the last year, the Water Footprint Network has had the delight of engaging with 4 companies from the Tata Group, including Tata Steel. And so we're delighted to be able to share the work that the Tata Group is doing in water footprint assessment, and to do so in such a way that you can see how they are really incorporating corporate water stewardship, water sustainability in their business, all the way from the facilities up to the leadership. We also heard this morning already from the Tata Steel leadership about their dedication to water and the goals of Tata Steel to continue to increase production while decreasing the water footprint. And so we have quite a committed group here, and it's very nice to be able to share their work with you. Just to put this in perspective, if we look at the progression of maturity in terms of corporate water stewardship, we see that the progression starts with looking within your fence, understanding your operational water use, water footprint, then understanding how you relate with the basin within which your facility resides. Developing a comprehensive water strategy, so what do we do about our understanding about our water use and the water use of others and the water scarcity, water pollution levels in the basin. Then looking outside of the fence, including the supply chain. And this is a very important step because if you're dependent upon inputs from other producers, if they are facing water scarcity, if they don't have water security, if they're facing regulatory or reputational or financial risk due to water, then your business is also facing those risks because you're dependent upon those suppliers. And then the ultimate goal is to engage in this collective action, engage in this community of dialogue about how do we really protect our water resources while sustaining a lively economy and also a solid maintenance of the environment and subsistence uses of water. I present this because this is the progression that the Tata Group is going through with their water use. To give you just a little insight into the program that we've held with the Tata Group, the water footprint is a way that we can engage with companies in this dialogue, in this corporate water stewardship maturity progression. It's a tool that allows you to move through each one of these steps It's a measure of the freshwater resources that are appropriated by humans. It's a measurement of the volumes consumed or polluted per unit of time and in a spatial location. So how much water am I using here at this time? It also looks at both that direct, our operational water footprint, and that indirect water footprint, so in the supply chain. And it's a very flexible tool because it allows us to look at the water footprint of a process, a product, a consumer, a group of consumers, a business. And so what we did with the Tata Group was we developed the water footprint for their facility, in many cases looking at each individual process. We developed a water footprint for a product. We looked at their supply chain. We looked at the sustainability of the total water footprint within the basin in which their facilities exist. And all of that led to an action plan of identified water footprint reduction strategies. So the water footprint has three components. The first one is the green water footprint. So this is the volume of water that is evaporated that comes from rainfall or soil moisture. This is pertinent in agriculture, in industrial facilities like the ones that we were engaged with in the Tata Group. We looked at the green water footprint of the horticultural areas. These don't actually combine into the product water footprint. It's a way for them to understand how the horticultural areas are also related to water resources. The blue water footprint is the amount of water that is withdrawn from lakes, rivers, and aquifers, and then again consumed. So it's not just the withdrawal, it's the amount of water that is evaporated through the process or not returned from the same source to that it was taken from. And then the gray water footprint is looking at the level of water pollution from the perspective of the load of pollution. So the water footprint assessment uses that language of green, blue, and gray water footprint to go through a process where we look at the water footprint accounting. So we actually calculate the numbers. So this relates to that stewardship progression in terms of the direct understanding the direct water footprint and the indirect water footprint. Then we look at the sustainability of that water footprint. And that's looking both at physical sustainability, we can look at social and economic sustainability, we can look at the efficiency of that water use. So could that rice be farmed with a lower water footprint? Could that water be used more efficiently? Then through that process of understanding how much water is being consumed or polluted and the sustainability of that, then we can look at what are the strategic actions that can be taken. And those actions can be taken within the fence, they can be taken in the supply chain, they can be taken in the watershed, or they can actually be taken across multiple watersheds. So in the water footprint assessment engagement that the Water Footprint Network had with the Tata Group, we went through a process, and it was a very exciting and interactive process. This was not a case where the Water Footprint Network came in and calculated the numbers and presented the results to Tata. What the Tata Group really wanted to do was embed water footprint assessment and the skills of water and the knowledge of water in their facility staff, and so as well as in the leadership. And so the engagement was very interactive. We have actually two of our water footprint champions, one Arunovo from Tata Steel and Neha from Tata Chemicals, who are here today and have been through this whole process together. So if you have questions, they're the experts in this. And so we started with a CEO workshop where we met with the CEOs of the 4 companies that we engaged with. and helped build the understanding of the process and also get their real support so that the facility staff had the imperative to go forward with this water footprint assessment. We then did a series of trainings of the water footprint champions like Arunovo and Niha. And this included several trainings over the series of about 6 months. We all went to each one of the sites. We had 11 facilities, and so we went to those facilities and got to meet the staff, got to understand the processes there, so that we were all gaining a lot of knowledge, both of from the Water Footprint Network and the IFC, into understanding the Tata world, but the Tata world understanding what we could bring to help them in their corporate water sustainability efforts. So we followed this with a couple more detailed workshops as the teams went from the direct water footprint to the indirect to the sustainability assessment and the response formulation. So there was this long engagement between the Water Footprint Champions, the Water Footprint Network, and the IFC. This then resulted in a feedback workshop to the CEOs and senior management so that they could understand what had been learned through this process, and also understand what was identified as the steps that needed to be taken for them to move along the path of corporate sustainability. This has then led to engagement with some of the supply chain, company reports, so that we have a solid documentation of the work that's been done, engagement with the watershed around one of the facilities, and we'll have a final report coming out in the next months that displays this whole process. So this was kind of a unique situation where the Tata group really wanted to bring in this expertise into themselves, and so we had quite an interactive process. Arunovo will now explain it from the Tata side. Tata Quality Management Services was the group that also helped facilitate us working with all of the facilities.